Hi, it's Lee and welcome to the Tesla Economist. Tesla is a story stock, but the way some people talk about it is as if the story is fictional. Simply by saying Tesla is a story stock, they try and imply that it's just an idea or a fantasy without any real world context, despite all the infrastructure, technology, engineers, scientists, capital, actual products that Tesla produce. However, either way, whatever your belief of the story, it will never end. It's not like gambling, where you put your money on red at the roulette wheel, and if you lose, then the story is over. Tesla's story will never end until it is achieved, provided Tesla remains solvent. In the meantime, the belief of the story will get stronger at some times and weaker at other times, depending on how much that story is reinforced. There's even a barometer of strength for the story, called the stock price. This measurement is also self-perpetuating. As the stronger it gets, then it creates a feedback loop, making the story stronger again. If more people believe the story will come to fruition, then more people will believe the story, and so on. But the story is a slow story, and if nothing happens for a while, or if things get delayed, then it loses its momentum, and people get less excited, or even forget somewhat about the story. At times it's running hot, and other times it gets cold. The biggest concern for people is when it's hot, is that they could miss out. If this story looks likely to come true sometime this decade, as it is a great story, filled with more wealth than ever imaginable by any other company, which is why it can be understood as hard to believe by some, or as a fantasy, especially when you factor in robots replacing human labour. The story's heat, or stock price, is not judged on current financials either. The market is forward-looking and more concerned as to what it can get to rather than where it is today. What is the growth going to look like? And we're continually trying to identify as many pieces as we can to put together to try and establish what the company will look like when everything comes together. But like I said, it happens slowly. Vehicles are the largest consumer product. They require a lot of materials, and EVs are a new industry which require elements and processing that is not yet in abundant supply chains. Whether it be mining or refining, then obviously the actual technology is still in its relative infancy compared to how many EVs are planned for production at the end of this decade even, let alone the number of vehicles on the road today. So in difficult economic times, the financials may not look great, but it's important to not judge Tesla's financials at the current period, but instead compare them to the competition and judge how relatively better Tesla are doing than the competition. As economies will continually change with slumps and booms, but even more importantly, look at what Tesla is able to achieve now relative to what they achieved in the past that are giving these current financials. Look at how things have come along, like the unboxed parallel manufacturing techniques, which we will soon see if Tesla can achieve, and hopefully it goes a lot better than Berlin and Texas. And Tesla have learned a lot from that, i.e., don't build car factories based on cell manufacturing. That has yet to be proven as scalable. Hence why Mexico will be using scalable LFP cells for mass production. I used to treat Tesla like a value growth stock. It was simple. Tesla would get costs down, production will increase, and thus sales, great margins, and the PE will lower to around 20 to 30. I didn't even price in FSD and just considered that as a lottery ticket and robotaxis as the extra bonus ball on top of that. In fact, I pretty much treated it like a car company with great tech, rather than a tech company with a great car. Then, when demand started to drop at the current prices and production was not increasing as much as we hoped due to 4680 not ramping, the direction of the company was no longer moving to where I had valued it. I had to re-evaluate my paradigm of this company. The economy, of course, had got tough, but the only way to increase demand, if production could even increase, was going to be by reducing prices. And Tesla could only reduce prices if they reduced costs, if they were to maintain these margins. However, before this, the 4680 cell and new manufacturing process looked like it would reduce costs by as much as $7,000 to $10,000 per vehicle. Wow, that was a lot of additional profit. And then that again with the Inflation Reduction Act. Wow, those numbers were looking good and easy to work out. Tesla was going to be able to make Model Ys from Texas for potentially almost as much as $20,000 less per vehicle. And at the time, we also expected a longer range due to a more energy-dense battery and lighter weight vehicle. And then the Cybertruck on top of that. But it was clear to me at the end of last year that this was not going to be the case, at least not anytime soon. The financials looked like they were going to crash, and they did, even with the support of the Inflation Reduction Act. But all those numbers still generate the same math, aside from Tesla dropping the prices. The price reductions are actually overly exaggerated, as the Model Y price was insanely high previously, and it was unlikely demand was that high at that price. And the vast majority of orders that gave us those 30% margins actually came from when the Model Y was a lower price. So essentially, if Tesla can perfect the 4680 cell eventually to where Elon says it can get to at around $70 a kilowatt hour, then there's still a massive saving in cost still to come from Texas and Berlin. They say they'll scale the sales next year, but this is about the 4th time that has been delayed. So I don't hold too much weight to that. But if it's achieved by 2025 or 2026, that will still be good. Can't wait that long? Well, don't expect any sympathy from the Tesla investment community. According to them, you aren't a real Tesla investor unless you're prepared to hold until at least 2030. Just put your investment in a box and don't look at it until 2030, is at least the mindset of many in that community. And credit to them if they can actually think that way. And if Tesla is selling 2 million Model Ys a year and able to eventually save a further $10,000 in cost, that's $20 billion additional gross profit, worth the wait. Then all the profit that comes from semi-trucks with 4680s too. This is another element of the story. But the biggest part of the story is FSD and robotaxis, and those numbers look insane too. But it's harder to comprehend how FSD will actually work and be solved compared to a battery manufacturing, when Tesla have been working on pilot plants that simply need to be scaled once these new factories are built. Then of course from there we rinse and repeat and eventually hit 20 million vehicles a year, and the price tag gets as low as $25,000. This was not the Tesla story. This was the Tesla value stock. The Tesla story was that Tesla will change the world, or even save the world from fossil fuels. Not just fossil fuels, but even labour now too. Clean air for everyone to breathe. No dangerous, boring jobs to worry about. Lower cost of living because energy is harnessed from the sun and wind. Decentralized wealth because anyone can put a solar panel on their house and store their own energy with batteries. Then, said energy can be used to charge your vehicle, thus decentralizing transportation too. Not only that, the transportation creates zero emissions. And that's if you even want to own your car. You can simply order a robotaxi that will be there faster than an Uber, with all the convenience of a high-quality infotainment system to keep you entertained along your journey, and little concern about getting in an accident, as it's the safest form of road transport. This is the actual investment. It's the story. A new future, almost utopia-like. And if it's achieved, there'll be one company that benefits massively from the energy and transport industry, which are obviously enormous. Not just auto sales, but actual transportation in general, as every single mile driven has a way to be monetized. No more oil companies polluting our skies, no more oil spills polluting our sea, and no more oil wars creating insurmountable damage. Who wouldn't want to believe in a story like that? Especially when you consider the potential catastrophic alternatives. And who wouldn't want to own a little part of that company that has reshaped the world in such a way? You don't even need to believe the story to be an investor. Instead, you simply need to believe that the belief will be so strong at times that the stock price will rise. And there's plenty of time for Tesla to give more reasons for people to believe. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.